Back in the 90s, there was a war going on between Nintendo and the N64 and Sony's PlayStation for supremacy, with Nintendo winning in the casual and younger audience market due to successful platform titles with mascots like Banjo-Kazooie and Mario. Sony had Crash Bandicoot, and a couple of years later, a little-known developer called Insomniac released Spyro the Dragon in 1998, a lovable dragon and popular title that went on to have 2 further games released on the original PlayStation. Now, 21 years later, the loop has gone full circle. Crash Bandicoot was remastered lovingly, and now we have the Spyro the Dragon Reignited Trilogy get the same treatment. These 3 classics are coming out on the Nintendo Switch. I'm James Zamero here at SwitchWatch. Let's jump into the review and take a look. Let's start by covering what's new. Activision own the rights for the franchise now, and they decided to go ahead and work with Toys for Bob, again given the successful work on Crash Bandicoot in 2017. It's fair to say that they've put a lot of love into this remaster. Visually, the games have been brought right up to speed, and gone are the polygon shapes replaced with gorgeous rounded graphics that look akin to a modern day cartoon. Across the 3 games, there are over 100 levels, and whilst nostalgia is a fine thing, they wouldn't hold up today. Everything has been remade from the ground up. Areas that used to be fairly bland have been fully fleshed out. Every building has texture and detail, and open lands now have grass and plants, for example. Water looks fantastic as well. Characters have had the full treatment. Spyro and his companion Sparks both look fantastic. Spyro has a cheeky look about him, and his movement looks just right. The small details are brilliant. Spyro has animations if he stands still, licking his claws like a cat, and the grass I mentioned can be singed when you breathe fire. And in the first title, the dragons you awaken have been given much more character, and each now feels unique. In the Year of the dragon babies have been injected with the same enchanting animations. Equally, enemies have been given personality boosts with some nice little animations that bring them to life. What is impressive is that with all of these changes, both large and small, the worlds have been painstakingly recreated to be exactly the same level design as originally intended. It's a case of remaking everything from the ground up, as opposed to just overlaying nice visuals, and it works extremely well. A lot of care has gone into the overhaul, and this extends to the controls and gameplay. Spyro feels right to control. The buttons are responsive, and he's actually better to control than in the original titles in my opinion, but still has a slightly manic side when he charges and whilst flying, which fits well with my memories. Reaching heights in the game, looking around and the gliding down is just a wonderful experience. On the move, the game looks and performs equally well, making this a great travel or holiday set of games. A few things have been added to enhance the experience that are welcome additions. For example, the camera has been remapped to the right analog stick, which is much more familiar these days, and of course controlling Spyro can be done using the left Joy-Con. For the purists out there, you can still revert to the original scheme. The guidebook from the second title, Ripto's Rage, has been added across the series, giving you a way to track progress across all games, perfect for the completionists out there, as well as giving you a convenient fast travel option. Motion blur has also been added to give a sense of speed that works well for me, but did make my girlfriend feel a little bit nauseous. Thankfully, this can also be switched off for those affected.
Welcome to Peacekeepers. Look how our treasure has been stolen and turned against us. Please, recover our treasure, Spyro.
Collect treasure. Got it.
The soundtrack has been enhanced by more detail. Stuart Copeland, the legendary drummer from The Police, produced the original soundtrack, and he worked on enhancing those same songs to include dynamic elements, depending on where you are and what you're doing to add extra drama and flair. Each track has some additional instruments that works really well, and he also produced a new theme song for the title. Once again, the option is there to revert to the originals if you prefer. I like this approach in terms of adding new features whilst allowing you to turn them off. It's this attention to detail, respecting the original titles and not trying to change the feel of the games while still making updates where it really does make sense, that works. You can tell that they loved the originals and wanted to keep true to so many people's memories of the first time they played these great games. There are a couple of gripes. The first is the loading times. Across all three games, when you jump between worlds, it takes a slightly uncomfortable amount of time to load, particularly in the first title. It is not a deal breaker, but it would have been nice if this was trimmed down a little bit. The performance generally is very good. I didn't find any game-breaking bugs or huge dips, but I did notice a couple of performance bobbles at times. Never very bad, and they never caused me any in-game problems, but they did pop in every now and then. When you buy a physical copy of the game, there is a huge 8.7GB download that must be downloaded to play the full titles. It was an issue that was there on the disc version, and it's a shame that this has made its way to the Switch cartridge, as you will need to get online in order to download and play these games. For me, this wasn't an issue, but it could be for some, and it's an oversight that could well have been avoided. Overall, the care taken in reimagining these titles has injected fresh graphics, small gameplay improvements, enhanced an already great soundtrack, and brought personality to characters and foes through all three titles. For many like myself, the interest in this release is in what's new and how it performs compared to the originals, but there are those who will never have played those titles, and this release is a chance to bring a new young audience to the series as well. So let's take a look and talk about the game in general. The first Spyro title is fairly simple, and the recipe used was enhanced over time, which can be seen when you play the game today. You can actually feel that the game's progressed over time. The games are bright and colourful, full of enchantment and wonder, especially with the overhauled graphics. The games are 3D platformers, and some of the first to make this work well. In the first title, your aim is to save dragons from the evil Nasty Nork, who has turned all of the dragons in the 6 worlds to stone. Spyro has 2 attack mechanics, a small fireball and a dash that headbutts enemies. Some enemies can be defeated with either move, whilst others can only be beaten by one or the other. In addition, Spyro can glide by hitting the jump button whilst in the air already, and this is used to reach platforms or often secrets. The title has quite an open level design that encourages exploration with lots of collectible items to be found. The game doesn't do a lot to handhold you, and often when you recover a dragon they tell you some hint that you already know but could have done with earlier due to the fact that you may have stumbled upon things in a different order. The difficulty of the game is not that hard for the most part. It's quite a pleasant but easy game, so you're more likely to not know where to look than to actually get stuck, and this makes it suitable for younger audiences as well. Youngsters will pick the game up right away, and I imagine very much enjoy this experience now that it's been enhanced. Part 2, Spyro Ripto's Rage, which was originally released as Gateway to Glimmer in Europe, was more ambitious. It introduced additional mechanics in the form of power-ups that last a short amount of time, a whole host of new characters, and more story and dialogue, as well as switching to an artifact collection goal. Artifacts are granted for completing worlds, and there are a load of memorable ones in this game. The goal here is to collect the artifacts in order to take down Ripto, and ultimately for Spyro to get back home. Like the first title, there are lots of collectible gems, as well as skill points to find. It's impressive that whilst the presentation has been improved, the game's core mechanics stand up really well today. The third title, Year of the Dragon, added multiple playable characters, expansive new environments, and lots of minigames. The plot revolves around recovering 150 dragon ends across 30 worlds. This title was the peak of the series on the PlayStation, and arguably the best title in the series. It's the culmination of improvements and additions to the previous titles that makes it work so well. The common threads through these titles are simple gameplay, a focus on discovery and exploration, and ultimately lots of fun. Completing all 3 games will likely take around 20 hours, but for completionists it's probably double that to find everything. I've found that with many historic titles like this, they just don't stack up to a new audience, whereas I think Spyro titles do this really well. There are some issues that have made their way across from the originals, such as navigation and sometimes fiddly camera angle, but overall these are still very much enjoyable. A digital copy will set you back $34.99 in the UK, $39.99 in the US, or $39.99 in Europe, and a physical copy will be about the same. If you do want to pick up a physical copy, then check out our Amazon link below, but as mentioned earlier, do note that there is still a large patch which you have to download. I find the cost fair given how much effort has gone into these remastered titles and the amount of playtime you can get from them. Overall, Spyro is a hot remaster. It glides onto the Nintendo Switch in style and enhances everything from the beautiful visuals and soundtrack to injecting personality and small gameplay changes that improve the experience. It does all of this without detracting from this experience and gives you the chance to turn off new features and relive a more authentic remaster if you prefer. The gripes are small, loading times and the occasional screen tear. Neither one was enough to put me off, and overall I'm delighted to be able to revisit these titles. If you are looking to remaster an old classic, this is absolutely how to do it. A rock solid 9 out of 10 from me. And that's it from me today, everyone. I'm James Zamera here at SwitchWatch. I really enjoyed replaying this one in all of its new glory, so I hope you've enjoyed this video as well. Let me know your thoughts down below, and if you haven't already done so, we'd love to welcome you aboard as a subscriber. I'll see you on the next one, everyone. Take care.